Hi, I'm Byron Collins with Collins Epic Wargames, and I want to welcome you to a video where I'm going to show you how you can use Polyversal for conversion of a World War II army. In this case, I've got some US forces here. These are 15 millimeter Peter Pig miniatures, and I've got some German forces here, and even a couple of aircraft. So I'm going to walk you through kind of how I approach this, and just in general, if you're not familiar with it, Polyversal has a design system called Arsenal. Arsenal is a really powerful tool that lets you bring in any miniatures from any line that you have, any existing collections that you want to use with the game. The game is primarily a sci-fi miniatures game, but it will handle miniatures as far back as World War I or World War II. And I was asked at Adepticon, "Hey, how would you do that?" And well, this is kind of the response to that. This is a video showing you how I would approach it, and maybe in the future we'll do a little skirmish between these two forces, set up some battle groups and stuff. But this is primarily going to focus on the design approach here. So if we go into Arsenal, I will show you where I started here. I did 21 tiles for these World War II units, and this was start to finish in a couple hours from the moment I was taking pictures of the miniatures till designs were done, printed, and stuck onto peel and stick blanks. So let's just pull up one of these. Okay, here's a rifle squad, and just showing you kind of how I did it for infantry. Upload your photo. I like to do a flip side of the back side as black and white. So I took a picture, made a black and white version, uploaded the front, uploaded the back, gave it a name. This is a rifle squad. It's infantry, obviously. Mobility is infantry by default. That's the only option. I did everything as a typical tech level here. Now you could go primitive for everything, but I like typical since I'm kind of restricting myself to World War II-era units for these models, these tiles. I made everything relative to that era. So typical tech for everything for me is how I did it. Now, these infantry don't have any armor. And a lot of the targeting and assault values, or at least the targeting values, are going to end up being on the low side because you're not going to have, satellite assist targeting and stuff like that you would have in our in a typical sci-fi force. The other thing is a lot of the abilities, you're not going to have stealth or active camo. You will maybe have airborne, amphibious. You're not going to have jump jets. You may have repair teams. So some of the abilities will not apply for World War II, obviously. And the same goes for vehicles. Weapons, same thing. You may, you may have flamethrowers. You may even have a chemical weapon. You may have MGs, missiles. This is infantry weapons, mortars for sure. You're not going to have plasma, right? Pulse laser. Definitely small arms. So a lot of the infantry squads and teams, I used infantry small arms, machine guns, and so forth. And then the class of weapon is kind of the relative strength of those weapons. For this German rifle squad, which has an MG-34 as part of its team, I used a class 2 MG, and then infantry small arms for their rifles. And so if you go back to the tile list, let me pick a vehicle here. Let's pull up the Tiger. Why not? The Tiger. Okay, so this guy is kind of interesting because this is probably the heaviest tank I would say I'm going to stat out for a World War II force here. So I chose vehicle. I made this a class 3 heavy. You could argue, okay, super heavy, maybe. Definitely not colossal in my opinion. So I don't know if you would ever have any colossals in this era. But so my heaviest vehicle is, in other words, a class 3 heavy. And most of the vehicles will fall under main or class 2 with some light vehicles as well. So mobility for that Tiger, it's obviously tracked and typical tech level again. And armor is relative to the class. So within class 3 heavy, Tiger had a lot of armor, so I gave it an armor 5. Again, targeting an assault or on the low side, and then for weaponry and abilities, no real abilities here. Um, we don't have kinetic dampening weapons and stuff like that, or anti-missile autoguns, this and that. But definitely a lot of these weapon categories will apply. So in this case, for the Tiger, I gave it a conventional gun class 3, accounting for that 88 millimeter gun on a turret, so it's 360 arc of fire, and then ground only for both of those, and a supplemental MG that's in the front of the tank, so it's a forward arc of 90 for the firing is how I approached it. So you can see some of the weapons here. Definitely a lot of these will apply for World War II era units, howitzers, flamethrowers, machine guns, missiles, mortars. Not the particle bolters, not the plasma, not the pulse lasers, not the railguns, definitely some rockets. So a fair number of these categories do apply, for World War II, and you just got to kind of pick the best applicable ones. For these 21 tiles, I had no problem picking, weapon categories that suited those weapons. And by the way, if you want to pull up any of these tiles, there's a little trick to that. If you look at the title bar for the web address, it will have a number in that bar when you're viewing a tile. So you can just go to arsenal.polyversal-game.com, log in, /tiles, / the tile number. In this case, to look at the Stuka, you put in 2290. You won't be able to modify my tile, but you can view it. So if you want to see any of these designs and what I did, the tiles start for me at 2290 and they end for me for this example at 2310. So 2290 through 2310 will show you each of these tiles that I did, and you're welcome to save those and play around with them, view them, print them out. Okay, so that's enough of Arsenal. Let's look at some of the tiles here, and the actual models themselves. So let's go back to our webcam here. So looking at, let's say this Sherman. It's a good example. So the Sherman here, obviously a U.S. medium tank. The way I did that tile was, and here's tiles printed out. This is on our peel and stick hex blanks that we sell. You can use cardstock, you can use photo paper, whatever you want. These are just, they come in a pack, and you get 25 of these blanks, double-sided. They're already pre-cut, and then you just feed this paper into your printer, and then you can peel and stick, your design right onto the tile. So that's what I did here to save some time. Okay, so you get front and back when you do a tile design. And in this case, we've got a conventional gun class 3 on a turret, and machine gun class 3 for the 50 cal on top, and then a machine gun class 2 for the forward firing hull mounted MG, which I believe was a 30 cal. Anyway, that's just how I approached it. The arc of fires are there. All the armor is there. I gave it a 2 armor within the class 2 main. So it's very lightly armored compared to the Tiger that we just looked at. And simple optics for targeting evasion is not the best because, it's class 2 typical. And it's going to be, fairly slow. It's a World War II tank. So you end up with a 21 cost for standard. It's relatively cheap. And another comment on that, if you're converting, an older era weapon system like World War II or World War I, your costs that you're going to end up with, your tile, your model costs, per model costs, are going to be much lower than in Polyversal's, sci-fi groups where, we have anti-grav tanks and advanced tech and all this stuff. So the costs are going to end up being lower, which means you're going to get more models out on the table for a typical game. So you may want to lower the points value that you play with and, see how that goes with, forced numbers so it doesn't bog down. So we do a typical medium game, 750 points per side. You might start with like 500 as an example. So So again, I've got some Shermans here. I've got some infantry. I've got some rifle squads and various other infantry here. Tank hunters, machine gun teams, 30 cal MGs. We got some tank hunter squads, some other Sherman variants, some howitzers, stationary guns, 105s, and then we've also got some anti-tank guns there as well. So I made all those tiles, and you can see them here. This is yeah, that's US. So I made all those for the US and the Germans, and you would put these together as a typical battle group. Here's a half track. It's got transport, so you can definitely get a squad in there, class 2, so you can handle 2 squads in the half track. So easy enough. And there's your squads. There's your half track. That's happens to have the 105 howitzer on it. But anyway, yeah. So same rules as in Polyversal would apply. You pick your command unit. You would form your battle group around that commander, and you could actually historically organize these forces into a company, a battle group that matches how they might actually have been fielded. I don't have that. I'm not showing that right here, but you could do that. Follow tables of organization, equipment, get as detailed and historical as you want. But the point being, all the same gameplay rules of Polyversal will apply, and they make sense. They work. All the orders are applicable. Command ranges, the ranges of the weapons, everything seems to fit and work. Even as a World War II game, so it actually plays well. If you like the mechanics of Polyversal, or if you're not familiar with them yet, definitely give it a shot, because you've got another system. There's so many World War II models out there that are cool that you may already have, and this could be another system you can play them with. And of course, we would encourage you to try it out. So with that, I'll show you some of the German vehicles and weapons that I did here. We got some Panthers. We got tank hunters with their Panzerfaust and MGs. We got MG-42 teams. Even a Panther turret emplacement. Those were nasty, and they were basically a buried bunker in the ground with a Panther turret on top. They were used in Italy a lot for fortifications. Stug 3s. We've got Tiger tanks, half tracks, and some fixed guns, anti-tank guns and stuff. MG teams, MG-42s, and even some cool guys here. These are forward observers. And again, Arsenal handled all of these really easily. I mean, rifle squads are easy, small arms with an MG. Forward observer, I made this guy not have any weapons at all, but I gave him good targeting. So what happens is when you give an order to call for fire, you order call for fire, right? And the observer sees a target, and then you give that call for fire to an artillery piece, something that's capable of indirect fire. So any howitzer, right? So this gun here has a howitzer on it, and you would give that guy the order of fire for effect. You pair these two together, and the observer's targeting is used instead of the artillery. So lets you do indirect fire, lets you do artillery from distance, and it works pretty well. That's how those two orders work together. So forward observers, thought it was a cool guy to add in there. Yeah, so tank hunters, Stug 3, Panzer 4, and when you look at the armors of these and the classes, like the Panthers and the Tigers, again, I made those class 3 heavy, right? Because they're the heaviest armored tanks I have out here, and yeah, so they're tough to take out for sure, and that should be reflected. I gave the Panther a slightly lesser gun than the Tiger. This particular one had the 75, I believe, and that had the 88. So just, you can account for that difference with classes of weapons, and vary among the units. When you get to aircraft, you can definitely do that for these Ju-87s. They've got a host of weapons on them, and in this case, I've got a couple MGs forward firing, and I can't remember if those were MG 151s, but either way, I looked at the stat. I actually have um, my my own earlier game, Spearpoint 43, I'd already previously looked up all the weapons that are on these different units and put them into Spearpoint 43 cards. So anyway, that was my reference source. If you want, you could look up any of these, whatever models you have, just Google it, and you'll come up with what weapons were on them for that variant. So pretty easy to figure out, okay, then what categories they fit into. So here we have bombs. This guy I know had a 500 kilogram bomb, one of them, and then I have him having four 50 kilogram bombs, I believe it was, underneath. So Stuka dive bomber, and they're mean aircraft. So again, this it falls under the turbofan category, or prop plane. And backside again gives you cost information, and this guy costs 26 points per aircraft, so not too bad. So again, costs are going to come out a little lower than if you're doing a sci-fi force, and that's fine. I mean, just account for that with the size points game that you decide to play, but otherwise everything else in Polyversal will apply and work just fine, from ranges to orders to stress and command range. All the stuff in Polyversal that you may already be used to if you've been playing it, will work just fine for World War II. So yeah, if you want to see some skirmish in the future between these guys, I could do that. Just drop a comment below, let me know. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the example video here. I kind of now want to play this game with World War II, so you may see some of that in the future, a new future video where we go through it. So thanks for checking it out, and we'll see you next time.